Captain Marcus Chen had been drifting in the escape pod for 47 days when the massive ship appeared on his sensors. The readings made no sense at first. The vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his destroyed cruiser, and it moved with a grace that defied its bulk. When the tractor beam locked onto his tiny pod, Marcus felt a mixture of relief and terror wash over him. The airlock hissed open, revealing beings that took his breath away. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. The creatures before him stood nearly 8 feet tall, with muscular builds that spoke of incredible physical power. Their skin had a bronze-like quality that seemed to shimmer under the ship's lighting, and their eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and familiar. But it was the females that truly stunned him. They moved with the fluid grace of apex predators, their movements precise and controlled. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy, and their armor seemed to be crafted from materials Marcus had never seen before. These were warriors, he realized, but there was something else in their bearing that reminded him of ancient stories from Earth. The one who stepped forward was clearly their leader. She was magnificent in a terrifying way, with hair that fell like silver water down her back and eyes the color of storm clouds. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am Commander Thera of the Valkyrian Fleet," she announced in perfect English, which surprised Marcus more than anything else so far. "You are human, yes. We have heard stories of your kind. But this is our first encounter with one of you." Marcus struggled to his feet, his legs weak from weeks in the cramped pod. "Captain Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Force. My ship was destroyed by the Zephyrian raiders near the Proxima system. I've been drifting for over a month." Thera's expression shifted slightly, and Marcus caught what might have been a hint of respect in her eyes. 47 days in a survival pod. Most beings would have succumbed to madness or despair long before now. Yet you maintain your composure and your rank. Interesting. The bridge of the Valkyrian ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Organic curves blended seamlessly with advanced technology, creating an environment that felt both natural and sophisticated. Crew members moved with military precision, but there was something else in their movements that spoke of a society built on honor and tradition. Thera led him through corridors that seemed to pulse with life. The walls themselves appeared to be alive, responding to the presence of the crew with subtle changes in color and temperature. When Marcus reached out to touch one, Thera's hand shot out to stop him. "The ship is alive," she explained, her grip firm but not painful. "It responds to those it recognizes as crew, but strangers can be seen as threats. Until the ship accepts you, it's best not to make direct contact." They entered what appeared to be a medical bay, where another Amazon waited with scanning devices that looked more like jewelry than medical equipment. The scanner passed over Marcus with a gentle blue light, and the medic's eyebrows rose in surprise. "His cellular structure is remarkably resilient," she reported to Thera. "Despite the extended exposure to radiation and the stress of survival conditions, his body has adapted remarkably well. His muscle density is lower than ours, but his neural activity patterns are fascinating. There's a complexity there that suggests significant problem-solving capabilities." Thera studied Marcus with new interest. "Tell me about your species, human. We know little beyond rumors and scattered reports from traders who claim to have encountered Earth vessels." Marcus found himself explaining humanity's expansion into space, their struggles with hostile alien races, and their determination to survive despite being physically outmatched by most species they encountered. As he spoke, he noticed that the Amazon warriors listening in seemed increasingly intrigued. "You fight beings larger and stronger than yourselves?" asked one of the younger Amazons. "Often," Marcus replied. "We've learned to rely on strategy, technology, and what we call stubbornness. When something wants to destroy you, you find a way to fight back, even if the odds seem impossible." Thera was quiet for a long moment. Your ship that was destroyed. You were alone? No. There were 312 crew members aboard the EDF Horizon. I was the only one who made it to an escape pod. Marcus's voice grew heavy. The Zephyrians hit us before we could properly defend ourselves. Their technology is superior to ours in almost every way. And yet you survived when your larger, more advanced enemies expected you to die, Thera observed. There's a strength in that which has nothing to do with physical power or superior weapons. The Amazon commander made a decision that would change everything. Human Marcus Chen, I offer you a choice. We can drop you at the nearest trading station where you might find passage back to Earth space. Or you can remain with us for a time, and perhaps we can learn from each other. Marcus looked around at the incredible beings surrounding him. These Amazons were clearly advanced beyond anything humanity had achieved, yet they seemed genuinely interested in learning from him. More than that, he sensed in them a warrior spirit that resonated with something deep in his own nature. What would I do if I stayed? He asked. Survive, Thera replied simply. We are heading into dangerous territory, pursuing enemies who have been raiding our outer colonies. It will not be safe, and you would be expected to contribute to our mission according to your abilities. Marcus thought of his destroyed ship, his dead crew, and the impossible odds that had led to this moment. Then he thought of the Zephyrian raiders who were still out there, still destroying lives. The choice, when it came down to it, was no choice at all. I'll stay, he said. Thera's smile was like lightning breaking through storm clouds. Good, then let us see what this human warrior can teach us about surviving the impossible. 3 weeks aboard the Valkyrian ship transformed Marcus's understanding of what it meant to be a warrior. The Amazons were not just physically superior beings with advanced technology, they were a culture built on honor, strategy, and a deep respect for those who proved themselves worthy through actions rather than words. Commander Thera had assigned him to work with her tactical team, initially as an observer. The Amazons' approach to warfare was sophisticated beyond anything Marcus had experienced. They didn't simply rely on superior firepower or physical strength. Instead, they crafted elaborate strategies that took into account psychology, environmental factors, and what they called the warrior's intuition. Your people fight differently than we expected, Thera told him during one of their planning sessions. They were studying star charts of the sector where Zephyrian raiders had been most active, looking for patterns that might predict their next target. The battle records we've obtained from various sources show humans engaging enemies that should easily overpower them, yet finding ways to win. Marcus traced a finger along one of the trade routes on the holographic display. We call it asymmetric warfare. When you can't match your enemy's strengths, you attack their weaknesses. Find what they don't expect, what they can't defend against. Show me, Thera commanded. Marcus manipulated the display, highlighting several star systems. The Zephyrians have superior ships and weapons, but they follow predictable patterns. They hit soft targets, avoid prolonged fights, and always ensure they have escape routes. They're raiders, not true warriors. They've probably never faced an enemy that was willing to sacrifice everything to win. The Amazon's storm-gray eyes narrowed as she studied his analysis. You're suggesting we use their caution against them. I'm suggesting we make them face something they've never encountered before, a trap they can't run from, with stakes so high they can't ignore it. Marcus highlighted a specific system. Kepler Station. It's a major trading hub, lightly defended, and exactly the kind of target they love. But what if it wasn't as lightly defended as it appeared? Thera called for her senior staff, and Marcus found himself presenting a battle plan to some of the most formidable warriors he'd ever encountered. The plan was audacious, requiring precise timing and a willingness to accept significant risk. Most importantly, it required the Amazons to think like humans, to embrace the possibility of failure and use it as a weapon. The human suggests we allow the enemy to believe they have achieved victory, reported Lieutenant Kestra, Thera's second-in-command. Then when they are most vulnerable, we strike with everything we have. It's not just about the tactical advantage, Marcus explained. It's about psychology. The Zephyrians have never faced an enemy willing to absorb initial losses for long-term gain. They've never fought someone crazy enough to let their home base be attacked as part of the plan. Thera was silent for a long time, studying both the tactical display and Marcus himself. Finally, she spoke. This strategy requires absolute trust between all participants. One mistake, one moment of doubt, and we lose everything. That's what makes it effective, Marcus replied. They won't expect anyone to be that committed to victory. The Amazon commander made her decision. We do this. But understand, human, if this fails, you will have led warriors who trusted you to their deaths. In our culture, such a burden follows a leader beyond death itself. Marcus met her gaze steadily. In my culture, we have a saying, failure is not an option. Sometimes the only way to honor that is to risk everything. Preparation for the operation took 2 weeks. Marcus worked alongside Amazon engineers and tacticians, amazed by their ability to adapt human concepts to their superior technology. They created false energy signatures, programmed their ships to mimic damaged vessels, and established communication protocols that would allow split-second coordination across multiple star systems. But the most remarkable change was in Thera herself. Marcus watched as the Amazon commander internalized human tactical thinking, blending it with her own warrior traditions. She began to see conflict not just as a test of strength and honor, but as a complex puzzle where the most unlikely solutions often proved most effective. Your species fascinates me, she told him one evening, as they reviewed the final preparations. They were alone on the observation deck, watching stars wheel past in the ship's viewports. You are physically weak compared to most spacefaring races, your technology is primitive, and your lifespans are brief. Yet you consistently achieve what should be impossible. Maybe that's exactly why we achieve it, Marcus replied. When you know you're outmatched in every conventional way, you have to become unconventional. When failure means extinction, you learn to find ways to win that nobody else would even consider. Thera turned to face him, and Marcus was struck again by the alien beauty of her people. But more than that, he saw something in her expression that hadn't been there when they first met. It was respect, earned through weeks of proving himself worthy not through physical prowess, but through the uniquely human ability to turn weakness into strength. There is something I must tell you, she said quietly. When this operation concludes, successfully or otherwise, I will face a choice that will determine the rest of my life. My people have traditions, laws that govern how commanders interact with other species. Marcus felt a strange tension in the air, though he couldn't quite understand its source. What kind of choice? That is not for tonight's discussion, Thera replied, but her eyes held his for a moment longer than necessary. Tonight, we prepare for battle. Tomorrow, we discover if human madness can triumph over Zephyrian superiority. The final briefing took place in the ship's main assembly hall, with every crew member present. Marcus stood beside Thera as she outlined the plan, watching as Amazon warriors who could each single-handedly destroy most enemy squads listened intently to strategies developed by the physically weakest being on the ship. When Thera finished, she called for questions. A young warrior raised her hand. Commander, what if the humans' plan fails? What if we underestimate our enemies? Thera looked at Marcus, then back at her crew. Then we will have failed while attempting something worthy of our ancestors' pride. But I believe we will not fail. I believe we are about to demonstrate that true strength comes not from superior weapons or larger muscles, but from the courage to fight when victory seems impossible. As the crew dispersed to their battle stations, Marcus felt the weight of 300 Amazon lives resting on his shoulders. These magnificent warriors had placed their trust in human cunning and human stubbornness. Now it was time to prove that sometimes the smallest and weakest could achieve what the strongest never imagined possible. The ship's living walls pulsed with energy as they jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward a battle that would test whether human determination could overcome alien superiority. The battle at Kepler Station unfolded exactly as Marcus had predicted, at least initially. The Zephyrian raider fleet arrived in overwhelming force, their sleek warships bristling with advanced weaponry. They found what appeared to be a lightly defended trading station with only a handful of outdated defensive platforms and a small patrol fleet. Commander Thera watched from the bridge as the enemy began their attack, her hands steady on the command controls despite knowing that everything depended on perfect timing. Beside her, Marcus monitored the tactical displays, watching for the precise moment when the Zephyrians would be most vulnerable. "They're taking the bait," reported Lieutenant Kestra. "Enemy forces are moving into optimal position around the station. Their formation suggests they expect minimal resistance." "Casualties?" Thera asked quietly. "Station defenses are performing as expected. They're putting up enough fight to seem genuine, but not enough to make the raiders suspicious. 17 defenders lost so far." Marcus felt each death like a weight on his soul, but he forced himself to remain focused. This was the terrible mathematics of war that humans had learned through centuries of being outmatched. Sometimes people died so that others could live, and sometimes the only way to save the many was to sacrifice the few. "Energy signatures indicate they're preparing to board the station," Marcus reported. "Once they commit their assault forces, they won't be able to retreat quickly." Thera nodded grimly. "All ships, prepare for emergence. Remember, we get one chance at this. Make it count." The moment came when the Zephyrian fleet had spread out around Kepler Station, their assault transports moving in to deploy boarding parties. It was then that space itself seemed to explode, with Amazon ships appearing from hyperspace at perfectly calculated positions. But the true genius of Marcus's plan wasn't the ambush itself. It was what happened next. Instead of immediately attacking, the Amazon fleet surrounded the Zephyrians but held fire. Thera opened a communication channel that reached every ship in the enemy formation. "Attention, Zephyrian raiders!" Her voice rang across space with the authority of absolute command. "You are surrounded by the Valkyrian fleet. You have 60 seconds to surrender, or we will demonstrate why the Amazon Confederacy has never been defeated in open battle." The response was predictably defiant. Energy weapons began firing as the raiders tried to fight their way out of the trap. But Marcus had studied their patterns, their psychology, their weaknesses. The Zephyrians were raiders, not warriors. When faced with a fair fight, they crumbled. The battle was over in 17 minutes. Amazon ships moved through the enemy formation like dancers, their superior technology and warrior training turning what should have been a desperate fight into a masterful demonstration of tactical superiority. When the last Zephyrian ship was disabled, not destroyed, the silence that followed was profound. "Status report," Thera commanded. "All enemy vessels captured or destroyed. Minimal casualties on our side." "Station casualties held to 23 defenders." Kestra's voice carried a note of amazement. "Commander, in all our military history, I don't believe we've ever achieved such a complete victory with so few losses." Thera looked at Marcus, and in her eyes he saw something that made his heart race. It was more than respect now, more than admiration for his tactical abilities. It was something deeper, something that spoke to the warrior bond they had forged in the crucible of shared danger. "Human tactics," she announced to the bridge crew, "will be studied and incorporated into our military doctrine immediately. What we have witnessed today is proof that true strength comes not from superior weapons, but from superior thinking." The aftermath of the battle brought unexpected complications. As the fleet returned to Amazon space, Marcus found himself the center of attention from warrior scholars who wanted to understand human military philosophy. But it was his private conversations with Thera that revealed the true significance of what had happened. "My people have laws," she told him one evening as they stood again on the observation deck. "For thousands of years, Amazon commanders have been forbidden from forming permanent bonds with aliens. It was believed that such relationships would compromise our military effectiveness and dilute our warrior heritage." Marcus felt his chest tighten. And now? Now the High Council faces a problem they never anticipated. You, a human, have proven yourself worthy not just as an ally, but as a warrior whose thinking has revolutionized our approach to conflict. They cannot ignore your contributions, but neither can they easily set aside traditions that have guided us for millennia. What does that mean for us? Thera turned to face him, and Marcus saw in her expression the same fierce determination that had made her such a formidable commander. "It means I have made a choice that will alter my fate forever. I have requested a formal hearing before the High Council to challenge the ancient laws. I will argue that you have earned the right to be considered not as an alien but as a true warrior worthy of joining our ranks permanently." Marcus felt the magnitude of what she was saying crash over him like a wave. "Thera, you could lose everything: your rank, your position, your place in Amazon society." "Yes," she agreed calmly. "But I have learned something from human philosophy that has changed how I see duty and honor. Sometimes the most important battles are not fought against external enemies, but against the limitations we place on ourselves." The hearing took place on the Amazon homeworld, in a vast amphitheater where the Council of Matriarchs had made decisions for thousands of years. Marcus stood beside Thera before beings whose presence radiated ancient wisdom and implacable authority. The eldest matriarch, her silver hair braided with symbols of rank earned through centuries of leadership, spoke first. "Commander Thera, you ask us to overturn laws that have preserved our people's strength since before humans had achieved spaceflight. What argument do you present?" Thera stepped forward, every inch the warrior commander who had led the victory at Kepler Station. "Honored mothers, I present the argument of results. This human has demonstrated warrior virtues that exceed those of many born to our ranks. He has shown courage in the face of impossible odds, wisdom in the development of revolutionary tactics, and honor in accepting responsibility for the lives of those who trusted him. These are admirable qualities," acknowledged another matriarch, "but they do not address the fundamental question of genetic compatibility and cultural integration." It was then that Marcus made his own choice, one that would echo through Amazon history for generations to come. He stepped forward and spoke directly to the council. "Honored leaders, I ask not to become Amazon, but to remain human while serving alongside the greatest warriors I have ever known. My species has survived by adapting, by learning from others while maintaining what makes us unique. Perhaps the question is not whether I can become worthy of Amazon traditions, but whether those traditions are strong enough to be enriched by new perspectives." The silence that followed stretched for heartbeats that felt like hours. Then the eldest matriarch spoke again, and there was something like approval in her ancient voice. "The human shows wisdom beyond his years. Very well. Let it be recorded that Marcus Chen of Earth has earned the right to stand among us, not as one who abandons his nature, but as one who proves that strength takes many forms." When Thera took his hand before the assembled council, Marcus knew that they had achieved something unprecedented, not just the military victory that had brought them together, but a victory over the limitations that both their peoples had accepted without question. As they walked together from the amphitheater, Thera smiled at him with an expression that combined warrior pride with something entirely new in Amazon culture. "It seems, human, that your species' gift for changing the impossible into the inevitable extends beyond military tactics. Marcus looked up at the alien stars above the Amazon homeworld and realized that sometimes the greatest victories came not from defeating enemies, but from proving that different kinds of strength could create something entirely new. One human, one Amazon warrior, and one choice that had indeed altered both their fates forever.